What's up YouTube? Welcome to today's video. We are going to go over one of the most beloved skills of all time and pretty much see why exactly people are able to get such high damage on PoE Ninja. I have been looking through the top builds to see if there's any that stood out, and this is a kind of a blast from the past. Look at the feet, very big foot fetish game. But as you can see, this used to be how PoE used to look like. Now whether it was good or bad, or if this was the peak of PoE, well, the answer is probably up to you. Like, some people love this playstyle, some people love Nemesis 4 currency, and this was pretty much back in Ritual League when people were doing Canyon. But this is what it looked like back in the self-curse. So this is the peak of PoE, as many people do agree. Now, this build has incredible damage, 532 million, and we're going to go over why exactly it's so high. Now, one thing you might want to see right away is look at these way the scepters are pointing. They're making a triangle, a pyramid. Almost. So why is that? Because one of them is mirrored. Now, as I said earlier, Blade Vortex, Winter Orb, Cast on Crit, and Tornado Shot have always been the most popular skills. They're the most fun skills to build around. And they always have this feeling where you can just run through the map and everything dies. Blade Vortex has the blades around you. Winter Orb has the channeling orb on top of you. Cast on Crit is just really cool. And Tornado Shot also has Mirage Archer. Now, as I said earlier, Self-Cursed Blade Vortex was considered a peak of PoE. You would temp change yourself and you would get a bunch of Soul Eater stacks and you would become bigger and bigger. Now, this is how many buffs that you used to have. Nowadays, it's pretty hard to get even like 30 buffs. And nothing really feels better than seeing full screen explosions. So in order to understand how this person gets 532 million, we need to look at the Blade Vortex Gem. Now, a lot of this series is not really for you to copy the build one-to-one. It's more to understand how to scale the damage so you can potentially play the skill later on, or if you do decide to adopt the skill, to understand how you can get so much damage. Like, the purpose of these video series is not to copy the build completely, it's to take lessons from how they actually scale the damage. And you'll see right away that Blade Vortex has the tags of spell, AoE, duration, and physical. Now, it's important to note that it's not elemental, and the reason why it's not elemental is kind of bad is because there is no dual tag for critical strike multi with physical spells. But then if you're a lightning spell, you can get critical strike multi with elemental and critical strike multi with lightning. So it's actually a pretty big importance that this tag is only physical, and it's actually a bad thing. Now, you can have up to 10 blades at a time. Now, Blade Vortex has actually been probably one of the most nerfed or changed skills in the past, and there is a changelog for this sort of stuff if you want to look at it. So let's go check it out. So this is pretty much how many times Blade Vortex has been changed in the past, and boy oh boy, look at the number of changes. They just have no idea what they want to do with the skill. It used to have a stack limit of 50, now then it got changed to 20, now it got changed to 10. Blade Vortex radius got increased, and then it got decreased, and then right here has 35% increased hit rate. They buffed it again, and now they made it to have 10 blades. And then they had this one big nerf after Blade Vortex was dominating every single league, where they lowered the base duration, they lowered the radius of the spell, they lowered the damage effectiveness, and then they lowered the base damage. And then they're like, oh, the skill, no one's really playing it again, let's buff it again, right? It went back up to 30%, and then it actually got buffed even more than its previous levels. So it's just been an up and down journey for this skill. So, but it's always been very popular. Now, for the build, we want to go look at the tree, and let's go check out what the PoE Ninja actually looks like. If we go look at the PoE Ninja builds, this is actually the same person, 3.1 billion. Now, this guy right here, so we import the profile over. Let's go see what we actually can find. So let's bring this over. So we can see here on the tree, this is a very standard tree. Now, you'll see if I ever do a lot of these videos that all these trees have a bunch of large. They're very cluster focused, and they're always reservation aura focused. Now, the reason behind that is because auras are actually a more damage multiplier, and then the clusters like voices allow you to have a lot of jewel sockets, and jewel sockets are important because nowadays you have the forbidden jewels. You also have rare jewels that can give you double multi. So it's very important overall. And then this is a build using a Militant Faith. Now, this Militant Faith gives you 4% increased elemental damage per 10 devotion, and then, of course, more increased effect of non-curse auras. And this is a really important one. It gives you 3% more spell damage for power charge. So since this build is rocking like 9 power charges, that's actually not even that much. is still a decent amount of a more damage multiplier. Now you have the aura nodes over here. You have the spell crit nodes, the efficient spell crit nodes. And it's actually kind of funny that this guy actually is running some suppression nodes. So it's actually nice to see that perhaps this build is not a full glass cannon, and he's also running extra curse. So that begs the question, what is he actually doing? So he has 1 curse, 2 curses. So is he actually going to be running 3 curses? Well, we'll find that out later on. So this is a 2-1 passive point voices build. And the reason you want to use 2-1 passive point voices is it allows you to use 3 medium clusters instead of just 2. And you can see here, this medium cluster has increased damage of heralds, and he actually has reservation efficiency on that many jewels. What in the world is this? This guy min-maxes gear like crazy. Look at this. Reservation efficiency, corrupted blood. Reservation efficiency, oh, this is double pen. This is actually a pretty good way to min-max your build. So this guy actually took it to the extreme, because I haven't really ever seen this many reservation efficiency jewels since before, back in the day with Aura Stacker. So, of course, the Militant Faith is also reservation efficiency. What can this guy not do? So, what is this? Is this going to be reservation efficiency? No. So, every single thing is pretty mid-max at this point. Now, you will see that he is taking Pain Attunement. The reason you take Pain Attunement is it's a 30% more damage multiplier. And it's forbidden jewels that allows him to steal the Elementalist Heart of Destruction. Now, he gains Convergence. And it also gives him area of effect when he doesn't have convergence. So that allows him to have a huge area of effect radius. Now 25 is not like the biggest in the world, but it's good enough for all but full screen clear. And he does have these Herald nodes that help out the clear. So there's Herald of Ash, Herald of Ice. So if you actually look over here, he's running a triple Herald setup. So right here, if you disable Herald of Purity, it's actually 61% of his DPS. So scaling the Heralds is actually a huge chunk of his damage. We disable these two. Each one of these is like 15% or 8% roughly. So overall, Tree very focused on spell crit, aura scaling, herald scaling, and trying to get as many jewel sockets as possible. Now, you might be wondering what exactly are the items this person is using. So as we can see immediately, he's using these 2 scepters that are actually look like they're mirrored, right? And they are mirrored. They are incredibly good implicits of explode, and spells have 10% chance to deal double damage, and that's incredibly important. Another roll with 109% spell damage, T1 roll, +2 spells for fizz, and then double damage while focused. So you have 40% deal double damage while focused between these two, and it also gives him 30% explode and 20% chance to deal double damage. Now here is where most of the damage actually comes from. You can see here, his profile is not even super min-max, since this thing actually has Spectral Shield Throw enchant on it. I don't really know why, but there could be more damage over here. However, this is a perfect pair of helm. Now, this helm has 30% more elemental damage, hypothermia, conk effect, spell crit, and those are the 4 links. And then you can get 4 more links on top in the helm. So it's an 8-link helm with Divergent Power Charge on crit, Awaken Unleash, Divergent Inspiration, and Anomalous Vol Blade Vortex 2120. This guy actually has some pretty expensive gear. So Anomalous Vol Blade Vortex gives you Leech as life, and that's actually very, very important. Now he is using a Sacrificial Garb. The reason you want a Sacrificial Garb is you have +1 level of all ball skill gems, and this one is pretty much made with Elevated Explode and Elevated Aura effect. Now his gloves are what he uses to get pretty much like a mini blast freeze, because he has the freeze prolif, and then he has roughly 60% of fizz converted to cold. And then if you actually looked at his tree from earlier, you will see that he actually has the 40% cold mastery. So he's able to convert all of his damage to cold. So this one right here is up here. 40% of physical damage converted to cold damage. Now this amulet is something that's like different this time around, and that this amulet will never exist again unless Lake of Calandra League is going core. He is using Charisma to be able to run more auras, and in order to get some aura effect. Now, this is 106% crit multi-amulet, and it's +4 to skills. Now, if we want to look at this right here, and how much damage does this amulet actually give, we take off the amulet, he actually loses roughly half its damage. So 4 skill gems and 106% multi is an incredible amount of damage. Now, for these rings, since he is playing a power charge stacking ring, these rings are generally one of the best. +1 max power charge and Herald of Purity buff effect. And Herald of Purity is pretty much a more physical damage multiplier. And it also gives him 67% increased physical damage. So he pretty much has 2 of these rings. Incredibly, incredibly strong. Now, first boots, he gets elusive, he gets tailwind, and these actually don't really give him any damage. Besides, even onslaught doesn't really do anything. If you can see it, if you put it on elusive and then you give him tailwind, it doesn't actually change what damage the Blade Vortex actually ends up doing. Now, lastly, you'll see that he has a Mage Blood, and he kind of has an interesting thing going on over here, whereas Mage Blood is with 4 unique flasks. Not sure I've ever seen this before, so at this point, you can pretty much conclude that this guy's profile was an actual real character, and then he decided to make a meme character for PoE Ninja. And you can tell because he didn't even allocate these points, and these points should probably be allocated in his normal build. Otherwise, there'll be no point even having a small cluster. So you can see this is kind of like an incomplete character that he pretty much made to get a really high PoE Ninja DPS. But that doesn't mean that we can't actually learn something from it. So as we can see here, most of the damage is going to be coming from the Blade Vortex. If we look at the PoE here, the Blade Vortex damage, this level of the gem is actually level 31, which is incredibly high, and it's pretty much an 8-link skill. Now, we have an 806% increased, and there's a lot of different places you get the increase from the power damage power charge spell damage, from the 109% spell damage on a scepter, for the increased damage on a bottle of faith, for it being a sulfur flask, the area damage on your medium clusters. There's a lot of different things, and even the righteous fire spell buff. But however, most of the damage is actually from the fact he has a 3,521% multiplier. So the reason why this one is so high is because Blade Vortex actually has a 350% more multiplier because it has 35% more damage per blade. Now that actually helps out a lot in order scaling your damage. And this build is pretty much an aura powerhouse, and that's why he has so many of those reservation efficiency implicits. So he's running Petrified Blood, he's running Vitality, he's running Hatred, he's running Zealotry, he's running Determination, Herald of Ash, Herald of Ice, Herald of Purity, Defiance Banner, and even Summon Skitterbots. And you might be wondering, how does he actually fit all of that in? Well, he kind of just does, because he doesn't have... Oh, he has a little bit of a negative mana. Well, you see, he actually can't run all of these auras, so... Yeah, I guess there's no miracle. So if you disable 2 Heralds, well, you have to disable a lot of stuff, right? So there's a lot of little cheating going on this profile, I think. And you would have to disable quite a bit in order to make it so that this profile would actually run in terms of mana. So that seems about... You could probably give him around that. So if you take off, like, you went full glass cannon, this is probably around right. And then no Skitterbots. Skitterbots is actually a 33% DPS increase, which is kind of nuts. So we do it like this is probably like the best setup. Yeah. But you can see here, you actually can't run all of these auras, so it's just kind of fake. Now, as I said, this is a 100% crit build. It's really easy to get 100% crit, especially when your helmet has 3% more spell crit, and you also have power charges. Now, you do get 682% crit multi, and it's mainly from the 5 jewels that he has, and also that absurd helmet, or not, that's the amulet that's 106% multi, and then he has 38% multi on each of these scepters. And then he also has these jewels that have double multi on them, so all these Viridian jewels, 9% multi and multi while dual wielding. Well, that's how he gets up to 682%. And I actually think he has 3 curses. I actually typed this in wrong. So he actually has Whispers of Doom right here. He also has +1 curse from the Occultist, and you have the regular base curse. So he's actually running, I think, Assassin's Mark, Elemental Weakness, and Frostbite. So obviously he's not able to cast all of these curses at once, because the only way to really cast the curses is you have to do it manually, or you would probably need an Arcanist brand setup. Now this build is kind of lacking on penetration. All the penetration you get is mainly actually from Occultist. Gets like 20% over here. He gets like 8% over here, or 6% from Heart of Ice, and then he has a bunch of penetration from his curses, from Elemental Weakness and Frostbite. So, but he doesn't really have any actual penetration on the gem. Now he also has a Watcher's Eye, and oh yeah, I forgot to go over the Watcher's Eye. The Watcher's Eye is actually pretty nasty. The triple Watcher's Eye of Hatred crit, 15% Hatred pen, and then he also has Zealotry, 10% increased damage multiplier. So lots of min-max stuff in order to get the penetration out. Now, overall, this build is actually somewhat tanky if you actually do run all the auras. Like, it's not like super tanky, but it does have 40k armor. And It does have 81% spell suppression. It even has some chaos res. Now for this build, it only has 34% life, or 8% increased life from the tree. So if you actually like drop some of the damage nodes, like say you got rid of that whole section right here, and then you start pumping your life up, right? Like just pump it up. You just take these nodes over here. You take these easy nodes for HP. And you can see right here, you can actually get a pretty decent build out that's not like super glass cannon. And that's literally just the difference. So here you can see the life is already up to 3.5k. And it's already a lot better. You throw a molten shell instead of all this junk. That's too many fake auras coming out. You can see that, yeah, it's not looking that bad anymore, right? And then it's because the character's on low life, right? If you don't go low life, then you do have a little bit of a template over here. Pretty much just because you have a lot of armor and you have spell suppress. That's just how it works. Now, this build is incredibly cheaty. It has 4 unique flasks of enkindling, but also it has some reverse cheating too. Because if we actually import the profile how it used to be, over here we will see that on this config, it doesn't get any focus, and a lot of his damage is focus. It doesn't get convergence from Elementalist, so it's already at 900 mil. And if he was able to get some minimum frenzy charges on this amulet, for instance, instead of -2 minimum frenzy, then this is literally a 1 billion DPS profile. If he could actually run the aura somehow, but he actually can't. Now, this build doesn't really factor in duration scaling. Duration is actually incredibly important on Blade Vortex, and mapping is just not going to feel as smooth, and that's part of the reason why Self-Curse feels so good with Blade Vortex. Now, the nice part about this build is you don't, and Blade Vortex in general, is you actually don't need any cast speed, because cast speed, all of your casting is done through Awaken Unleash, so you gain seals, and it's like instant, so you don't really need to worry about it. So that's why it's a lot easier to scale it when you don't need to worry about cast speed. So for a build like Lightning Conduit, for instance, you really need to focus on cast speed. But thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know down in the comments below if you would like to see me make like a little bit more budget version of this build to see how it goes. I do know a lot of people actually league started Blade Vortex Occultist, and it was actually a pretty pleasant experience. But thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know down in the comments below if you enjoyed this type of content. And I hope you find more mirrors, exalted orbs, devices, and mage bloods to me. And see you next time. Bye.